What is up, everyone? Welcome to Omega Talks episode 2. You read the title. You might have saw the shitty thumbnail I probably put together in 5 minutes. We're going to be talking about the great debate of Caw. Sim versus Efed. Versus story-based. I'm throwing that one in there because it's also something that exists, it's sort of a realm in between. So, audio only still. I apologize. I know I got a couple responses already on the Google forms to be in episodes. I'll be contacting some of those people soon to get, scheduling stuff out of the way. Hopefully, next episode or maybe one after that, depending on, scheduling and all that fun jazz. I'll have a guest on. If you want to be a guest, there's in the link of this video, or the description of this video, I should say, there will be a link to apply. And yeah, it's also on my Twitter. I don't think I've pinned it yet, but I'll be sure to pin it after I'm done recording this, so it'll be pinned for you. Feel free to apply. I don't think I'll be able to ever get to everybody if we get enough submissions, but it's good to have people there who might be interested in either like an interview type episode or maybe just discussions on things. It can be drama. I want to get that out of the way. If you want to discuss drama and stuff, I left the questionnaire to tell me any info or like things you might want to talk about. That's where you put that, and I'll try to get to everybody eventually, but who knows if I will. Who knows if I'll get a ton of submissions or not. If you want to be on it, I'll get you on. Obviously, you don't have to show your face or anything, but I at least need mic, especially if I keep these audio only. I think eventually like I said, I ordered a webcam in the first episode. It should be here soon, and it'll probably just be your audio, my audio, if you want to know the format, and probably my face, me reacting, and all that. So to get started with today's topic, Efed, Sim, story-based, yeah. There's different little elements of Caw. I'm sure there's different little tweaks to those three things that are in their own little separate communities, but those are the three big ones that I see. Obviously, Efed and Sim, they're the two ones that people always debate. I'm going to talk about all of them, give my opinions. There's no specific one that I think is better than the other, but there's problems of each, and, pros of each. Obviously, we'll start off with the main one, Efed. It's probably the easiest to get into, is the only thing I was really in, not including Premiere, for a while. I was in a lot of Efeds. Caw creators pretty much just focus on, normal attire, entrance, moveset. Those are important ones. Everyone focuses on that. And they also focus on their stats to make them as possible, as best in what they're supposed to be, like Omega. I tried to make him balanced, but also make his strength stats and things like that, like durability stats, slightly higher than some of his other stats. Like, I believe his durabilities are all high 70s to 80s, while some of his offense and other stats are low 70s and the 60s. I was able to balance it out to still get a 90 overall, which is kind of the norm. You're not always able to balance them out and them still work, but Omega works pretty well. And then on the show owner side, they are obviously the ones creating the shows and all the assets for the shows. Typically, they might have some help from some people. They obviously create the cards, they stream the matches, the shows. Typically, they're weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. Usually, there's pay-per-views. Usually, they have a win-loss. They keep track of that because it's kind of the main way to show who is kind of doing well and should be getting title shots and all sorts of things. It's obviously AI controlled, so it's kind of 50-50 on whether somebody wins or not. They could win one week and lose the next, and it makes really no sense, but that's how AI works. That's the risk you take for running an Efed. Moving on to Sim, it gets a bit more complex here, at least in my mind. Sim's probably where I have the least experience. I tried to get into Sim way back in the early days of late 2018, and never got into it. I joined a Sim Fed, but I never got around to having a match or anything. I experimented with it on my own a little bit, but never really cared. I guess you could say I do it running a show, but I see it as a bit different. I'm running a show, which we'll get to when we get to store-based. But it's player-controlled, the matches, typically. Sometimes bigger feds have specific people, like a few specific people control the matches. FAM. And yeah, call creators, they obviously play out the matches. Some, if they were doing it for a show and not on their own, which is most cases. Sometimes there's two people or a couple people that get together and run a match just for like a channel, not for like a show or anything special, just on their own independently, which is fine. But typically it's for a show, so they typically play out the matches after being given the results and maybe a couple key spots they're supposed to hit, depending on the show and the match. Showrunners obviously make things like the arenas and titles and everything for the show. They usually are the people that put together all the matches into a show and make it a flow as much as possible, and be an overall good show. Typically they take a lot longer to make than Efeds, mostly due to people, actually having lives, and they record their own matches typically before sending them. So it's hard to get people together to do matches compared to an Efed where you can run it every week from as long as you have people's cause. It's a bit different. There's also, I don't know, it's just what I've seen. Not everybody in Sim does this. It's obviously way less than everyone. But there's a lot of people in Sim that seem to have sort of an ego that, oh hey, they do Sim, therefore Efed people do less than them. Efed is a completely different thing compared to Sim. Of course, people do different things. If you do Sim and you're just proud of it, cool, good on you. But if you're somebody who bashes people for not doing Sim, you're a terrible, toxic human being, and you shouldn't be in this community. I said it. This is my podcast. If you don't like it, fuck off. Moving on to story-based. It's sort of the outlier that nobody really talks about unless you're like part of Premiere or a major one. Premiere is obviously a group of story-based feds. There's also a couple other big ones that I'm a part of. Headstorm, obviously I run APW. There's a couple other ones that I know of, and there's obviously way more than I don't know of. But they're player controlled by the showrunners typically, and maybe a friend if they don't want to record on matches. Like I co-run a show, so both myself and my good buddy Harpo record matches for APW. Call creators usually submit their cause to appear on a show, or if there's multiple shows in the case of Premiere. It's the big example I have. I apologize. Once again, Premiere's link will be in the description. But typically, they submit their call, and if there's multiple shows, one of them will probably pick them up eventually. Or if it's just one show, eventually they'll probably be picked up typically. Most story-based feds usually take everybody. Whether they last, that's different. Whether they get upset after losing their debut match, like a certain big-eared looking dude that main evented MWA and then just dipped. That looks honestly stupid to me. I don't care for his cause looks, but this isn't the time to be doing that. I'll shoot on things like that another time. But yeah, they usually have some sort of input or like on how they could be used. For example, my good buddy and cousin Alex, before I took over the Alexander Blacksmith call, was actually suggested that he debuted Screw Me Over in my match against Kingpin, and it worked out. Let's see. Harpo, he didn't specifically really say it, but he was paired with me, which is what he wanted to do on MWA, and that worked out so far. So usually the cause, especially if it's in a smaller fed, has some sort of input. For example, APW, we know certain guys want to be hardcore, so they're in the hardcore scene. Some guys are sort of still working on their cause, so that's why they're in the lower card, so they can work on their cause and kind of, push themselves up. That's kind of the whole goal we have, sort of how CDW was meant to be, but CDW was terrible because I didn't know what I was doing back then. And that was the whole reason that fell through. We had a great roster, but it's fine. That's a CDW is an episode in itself. It might be the next episode if I can't get somebody on. Just saying. Moving on though, showrunners. They do probably the most work in story based. They create the matches, storylines, everything for the show, unless sometimes they'll have somebody maybe make an arena or a title for them, which makes sense. They're plotting out storylines, typically at least a couple in-game months in advance, like if they do the, for show, then pay-per-view sort of thing that most, WWE does. If they follow that especially, they'll book months in advance. I know we have booked all through the end of season 1 for APW, even though we take forever to get those shows out because it's not our priority. We have a YouTube channel to run after all. Link in the description, shameless plug. But yeah, showrunners of story-based feds also create and edit shows, and typically these shows take the longest to produce because of everything that goes into them. They don't have to worry about the scheduling thing compared to Sim, unless they're doing voice promos, in which case they still have to wait on people. Obviously, text promos are a option as well, but voice promos obviously make a show seem more legitimate, and they also need to make sure things flow well. And typically, these shows do have the best quality. Looking at them, with a blank slate, typically they're the best shows to watch, the most enjoyable shows. Not saying Efed and Sim can't be enjoyable, but I feel like I have the most fun watching story-based shows. And it probably helps they have, the show owner has a certain direction for each match and each character, and usually there's no outside interference for them, so they can just tell the story they're trying to tell, besides when 2K glitches, especially if they try to use 2K20. But typically they are the best shows. So if I had to say I preferred one, not saying it's the best, I enjoy watching and creating story-based content the most. However, I see the appeal in Sim to be able to control your own matches, usually have your own say, especially if you're doing it independently of somebody, just create matches for fun, not for a show or anything. You obviously have more control when you run the matches. I get the appeal to that, and Efed's obviously the easiest to get into. You make a good looking car, get them on a show, support the show. Typically you'll at least get somewhere in the Fed, unless you're me and you lose every single match in Efed, or at least lose every big match, like title match or anything, it happens. Or if you're part of certain feds that show bias towards certain people, clear bias, mind you, that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, I think overall I enjoy the story-based side of COD the most. But that's just my opinion. You obviously could enjoy Sim the most, you could enjoy Efed, doesn't matter. It's your personal preference. So I think that's everything I need to say about this whole debate. There is no specific best in this discussion. And if you think there is, then you're toxic and you need to get the fuck out of this community. Fuck you. I'll say that as much as I fucking want. It's my podcast. Cancel me, I don't care. I'm just stating the facts of the matter, and you're just getting pissy. If you don't like my language, I understand that, though. I apologize. But, I get serious, and that's how I talk, and I'm not gonna change myself for the sake of my own damn show. Now, if you think the cussing's a bit too much, I understand. If it does offend you, or if you have children, I know there's people in this community that have children, so I tried to censor myself a little bit, at least for episode 1. Feel free to let me know, and I'll try to tone it down. But for this specific episode, I didn't care. I understand, though, if people don't prefer cussing. However, I just state facts. But that's going to be the end of this episode. It's a bit shorter than the first one. Hopefully, the next episode or the episode after, I can get somebody on. I've got a couple responses already. If you want to be a guest yourself and bash me if you want, that could be funny. Or actually, be in an interview or a discussion about something specific, let me know in the forum. I'm probably going to update the forum a little bit to get a bit more information for the sake of the episode, a bit more about your specific interest in CAW, and your credit card. No, that's a joke. I'm not going to get your credit card number. I don't need. No, that was a bad joke. Probably. I'm still leaving it in. I don't edit these. Come on now, editing for a podcast sort of style thing. Nah. But I'm gonna get out of here though. I'll be back with episode 3, hopefully in a couple days. And yeah. Catch you guys then, and hopefully we'll have the webcam. Hopefully. If not, by the next episode. Hopefully. Alright, goodbye now.